Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well. Today we'll be talking about array lists, which are very exciting. But first, let's return to our old friend, the array. Arrays are great. They're very powerful tools for representing sequences of elements. But they also have a number of shortcomings. What if, for example, we didn't know how many things were going to be in the list that we were managing? Or maybe even the size of that list was changing throughout the course of the program. Or what if we wanted to add and remove things from our list? Arrays can't handle any of those behaviors. Really, arrays can't handle any behaviors that are consistent with how we would expect a list to act in the real world. Fortunately, Java provides us with the ArrayList class. ArrayList is an extremely powerful class that allows us to build lists of arbitrary sizes, and it also comes with a number of useful prepackaged behaviors. Underlying the ArrayList is an actual array, but Java handles all of the implementation details for us. And here's how we make one. Now, this looks pretty familiar, but there's one thing that's new, and it's these weird angle brackets. Now, I'm sure you can guess, based on what goes in between the angle brackets, what they're for, but let's go through it in detail anyway. ArrayList is what's called a generic class, which means that it takes a special parameter to determine what types of things will go in it. Now you can read the angle braces as the word of. So we would read this particular array list as an array list of strings. And here in this line, we're creating a new array list of strings. And it's just like creating any new object, except we have an extra special parameter. So ArrayList of string is the type of our variable. And the string itself is what's called the type parameter. And again, it tells us what we're allowed to put in the array list. So we won't be allowed to put anything in this array list besides strings. And then, of course, we have the variable name. I've decided to call this list coolList. And then we say new, and then we restate our type. Just like we say car my car equals new car, or square my square equals new square, we restate our type on the other side of the equal sign. And then, of course, we still have our parentheses, because this is a constructor, just like any other constructor. We're calling a constructor to create this new array list. So, now we have a new array list. Every new array list that's created is initially empty. We have an empty array list that we can fill with strings to our heart's desire. How do we do that? Well, with the add method. Calling add on a list adds the element to the end of the current list. So here we have our cool list, and we add Logan to the end of the list. Then we add Mike to the end of the list. So now we know how to create array lists, and we know how to add things to array lists. So now we have an array list with two strings in it, Logan and Mike. What if we want to print this list? Well, it couldn't possibly be easier. We just print the list. And we don't need to call any special methods to convert coolList to a string, because coolList has implemented its own toString method. And remember, println automatically calls toString on any objects that you pass it. So we just say print coolList, And this produces the following output. There's our list, Logan and Mike. So now we can make array lists, we can add things to the end, and we can print them. What else can we do? Well, we can add things at a specific index. We use the syntax list.add. The method is called add once again. Then we specify the index where we want to add the item and the item that we're trying to add. So let's say we want to add the string Ethan to the beginning of our list. Take a second and think about what line we're going to write. Well, our list is called coolList. The method we're calling is add. And we want to add it to the beginning of the list. So we want to add it at index 0. And then the item is the string Ethan. And there we go. Now, if we print the list again, it'll be Ethan, Logan, and Mike. So, now you know. We can make lists, we can add things to the end of lists, we can print lists, and then we can add things at a particular index to a list. Now, if we're adding things, we probably also want to remove them. And we do that with list.remove. And we specify the index of the item that we want to remove. So let's say we want to remove Ethan from the list. Well, where is Ethan at the list? What index? Index 0. So we just call coolList.remove at index 0, and we're back to the list we had before. Ethan has been removed. Now, you've taken in a lot of information in the past few minutes, so why don't we do a couple of examples? I've written this block of code, and I want you to think about what the state of the list is after this block finishes executing. So, I've created a new array list called movies list. I've added Terminator to the list, and then I've added Guardians of the Galaxy to the list, and then I've removed the element at index 1. So what is the state of this list after this block is finished executing? Well, it's just a list with one element, and that element is Terminator. Why? Well, we had an empty list, then we added Terminator to the end of that list, and then we added Guardians of the Galaxy to the end of that list. And then we removed what was at index 1. Well, what was at index 1? Guardians of the Galaxy. So that left us with just Terminator. How about another example? What happens here? I make a new list called animals. I add lions, then tigers, then bears. And then I remove the item at index 0 and the item at index 1. Take a couple of minutes, trace through this in your head, and think about what the state of the list is when this block is finished executing. So, what do we have? Well, we have a list with only one element, and that element is tigers. Now, some of you might be a little surprised by this. You might have been expecting us to be left with bears. So why is the answer tigers? Well, remember, each line is executed sequentially. So let's go through line by line and see what the state of the list is after each one. First, we make the new array list, and it's empty. Then we add lions. Then we add tigers, which gives us lions and tigers. And then we add bears, which gives us lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Then we remove the item at index 0, which is what? It's lions. That leaves us with tigers and bears. And then from this list, we remove what is at index 1. And that's bears. So that just leaves us with tigers. Now, just one more piece of new information before we go. So far, we've created lists, we've added to the end, we've printed, we've added at an arbitrary index, we've removed, and done a couple of examples. Now let's talk about iterating through lists. Well, if we want to iterate through a list, we need two things. First, we need some way to get the size of the list. How many things are in the list? Then we need a way to get an item at a particular index. And those methods are respectively size and get. So here's a for loop for some list of strings. We have our loop variable I, and I goes up to list.size. And then we get out each element of our list and we put it in the variable sum element. And then we print sum element. Now this looks a lot like how we iterated through arrays. In fact, it's extremely similar. This is just like array.length. It tells us how many things are currently in the array list. Just like array.length told us how many things were in the array. List.get is just like calling array index I. We get the element at that particular index. So, we've learned a lot about array lists in the past few minutes. We've added things, printed them, added at indices, removed at indices, and now we've iterated through them. Your assignment for tomorrow is to read the first part of Chapter 10, Section 1 in your textbooks to review what we just talked about here. It's only a few pages. Tomorrow, we're going to start with some ArrayList practice, and then we're going to have some practice it problems, and then you can use the rest of the time to work on your checkpoint 3. So, see you guys in the morning.